Harris, they are doing their damned best to try and make us hate Chappell Roan, and you will never make me hate Chappell Roan. You will never make me hate Chappell Roan. So far, she has not said anything that I think is wrong. Everything that she said, like, and they are now, every fucking outlet is releasing multiple Chappell Roan quotes a day. And just so much attention has been put on every single thing that she says. And to that I say, you will never make me hate her. And also, what has she been wrong about? What has she been wrong about? The fact that she is not adhering to how a lot of y'all think that a celebrity should behave, and certainly when it comes to liberal Hollywood's involvement in politics, that you think that she is a nightmare, that you think that she is wrong, that you think that she is a bitch and a brat and doesn't deserve the spotlight that she has, shouldn't have the spotlight, that she can't handle fame. Oh, where's her PR team? No, she doesn't need a fucking PR team. Why does she need a PR team to sanitize her statements? Chappell, and I know I'm always like, don't do celebrity worship, but Chappell is one of the realest fucking celebrities out there right now. Genuinely. She is not mincing her words. She is not running her statements through a fancy, expensive PR team. She is just speaking authentically, and it's not going over well with a lot of her libbed up fans who don't want to feel at all responsible for their unadulterated support of somebody like Kamala Harris. They look at Chappell Roan and they feel uncomfortable that they don't have red lines like her and that they are morally inconsistent. And so instead of looking inward and going, what does this say about me? What do I believe? You know, am I perhaps morally inconsistent? Instead, they're looking at her and going, ugh, how disappointing. What a shame you have brought to the LGBT. How dare you use drag aesthetics? How dare you call yourself a lesbian? It's like, no, actually, the difference here is that Chappell considers people outside of the United States. What she is looking at as a woman, as a queer artist, she is looking at the United States' actions around the world. She's looking at queer people around the world who have been affected by the U.S. empire. And she's also looking at queer people in the United States who have not been protected by the Democratic Party, by people like Joe Biden, who a lot of her liberal fans are screaming at her to come out and unequivocally support. Like, that's what's going on here. Okay, so anywho, let's it's disgusting how quickly people start using her sexuality and persona against her when she didn't blindly follow the liberal script. Yeah. It just feels like moths to a flame, with the flame being, if you do not adhere to what our expectations of you as a celebrity in liberal Hollywood are, then we will now use your identity against you in a way that we will condemn you for your using your identity in the wrong way. Like, if you are a queer artist who is not openly advocating for Kamala Harris and for the Democratic Party's policies, then you are a shame to queer artists ever. You don't deserve to be queer. You don't get to be a queer artist anymore.
Guys, I'm gonna be real with you. I don't have much time. They're after me. I've discovered the truth about the Pop Crave industrial complex. Pop Crave, Pop Juice, Pop Flop, all of its partners in crime are incredibly sinister, and it's all one psyop. It's one psyop to make us constantly argue about stupid rage bait on their posts. It doesn't matter. I already gotta go. The cops are clearly after me. Please listen to what I'm saying. Please heed my warning. Listen, I swear I'm not court mandated to talk about this lady once a month. However, despite the warning I have given 2 times now, people on the internet continue to be extremely weird about her, and in this case, purposefully obtuse. So, quick background, Chappell Roan is a famous LGBTQ drag queen and pop singer. Chappell has had quite the unprecedented meteoric rise over the last, 11 months. I have 2 other videos about her, you should check them out. I'm debating just making an entire playlist at this point. But because Chappell Roan is suddenly very popular, everybody wants to talk to her, and she keeps giving interviews. And those interview quotes make for very good engagement bait because Chappell Roan is a very controversial and polarizing pop star, mainly because she tends to speak very off the cuff and is very honest and vulnerable about her experiences with fame.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that she is now controversial simply because she is honest in what she says? I was talking to Peach Jars. We were just chatting about women and what it's like being a woman online. And I said to her, I was like, you know that I am considered controversial. She was like, what? What the fuck have you even done? I was like, here's what I've done. I'm a woman online who is opinionated, who gives my opinions on things, who speaks about my, I speak about my lived experience as a woman of, as a woman of color. And because of that, I am controversial. That's how it goes. Like, I remember being on Emiru's stream, and Emmy and I were just talking about, we were swapping stories on what it was like growing up in a predominantly white suburb as, one of the only Asian people in the vicinity. My family is half Chinese. I think she's half Asian as well. And how just by us sharing our experiences of, the fetishization that we dealt with from a very young age, there were people in her chat who were saying to Emmy, like, oh no, don't get political. Ooh, stay away from Caroline. She's so toxic. You're not even allowed to speak about your own experiences without it being, oh, gross. Oh, you're getting into politics. Ooh, this is controversial. No politic here. No politic here. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that my lived experiences were not something that I'm allowed to speak about.
All of them positive. I like Chappell Roan's music. I've defended her on here about the fact that she's very honest toward her relationship with fame. I think it's fine, and in some cases very refreshing. Do I agree with every take that I've read?
Society as soon as a woman gains a semblance of fame. What is she doing? You know what? Talk about someone who's controversial.
Read of hers
Sandwich.
Out of context from the original interview on a Pop Crave adjacent account? No, but it seems as though this cycle that repeats itself every week is starting to get under people's skin, and today I would like to explore why. So this whole controversy started over the weekend when The Guardian released an interview with Chappell Roan. One of the things that the article references is the moment at Governor's Ball earlier this year. I actually happened to be there for this, when Chappell Roan came out on stage in drag dressed as the Statue of Liberty and revealed that she refused to perform at the White House for Pride. The interviewer presumably asks Chappell Roan about this moment, and she says, I have so many issues with our government in every way. There are so many things that I would want to change, so I don't feel pressured to endorse someone. There's problems on both sides.
Oh, God forbid she says
your
this.
Critical thinking skills, use your vote, vote small, vote for what's going on in your city. Now, this is a pretty bad quote.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So that is the quote that has caused people to fucking lose their minds. And what you'll notice is, first of all, she does not say that she's not voting. She is simply saying, I am not going to publicly endorse a candidate because there is not a candidate who, like, what she's saying is that there's not a candidate who I align with enough to publicly endorse them. And all people are narrowing in on is the both sides thing. They're like, so you think that Donald Trump is the same as Kamala when it comes to LGBTQ issues? You're both siding this, you centrist? No, she's not a centrist whatsoever. And if you've listened to anything else that she has said, you will understand that she is and has been very clear as a female queer artist that there are things that the Democrats are doing that they are responsible for that she does not condone, that she is against. And it's why she turned down the invitation to perform at the White House, and why instead she wanted to perform poetry by Palestinian women, and her team talked her out of doing that. And so Chappell has demonstrated time and time again how she feels about the current administration in power, and by no means does that mean that she is a Trump supporter. Of course not. It is laughable. It is laughable to pretend as if her saying here, no, I'm not going to endorse someone because I have issues with both of these political parties, including the one that's currently in power and is materially responsible for the genocide in Gaza. And so here's what I would tell people instead is use your critical thinking skills. Don't base your voting decision on who I would vote for or would not vote for. And also how she is directing people to local politics. She's like, if you really want the best chance at being a part of progress and change, get involved locally.
Vote small, vote for what's going on in your city. Now, this is a pretty bad quote, especially clipped out of context because she's not being clear. When that whole governor's ball moment happened, she made it pretty clear that she was specifically referring to the US government's ongoing relationship with Israel. I know that because before she said she wasn't going to come to the White House to perform for Pride, she said that she was calling for the freedom of all oppressed people in occupied territories. And while she didn't name Palestine specifically in that moment either, she
Gotta love the way you articulate your ideas. Gotta go to bed, but just want to say enjoy my stay. Thanks. I hope you come back.
On to elaborate about this moment where she decided.
I don't even agree that this is bad out of context. Like, I really do think that it's clear as long as you are not being bad faith about it.
Not to perform for Pride in a Rolling Stone article in which she says, I had picked out some poems from Palestinian women.
And I think this is because a lot of, those of us who get it, it's because we also have dealt with this where criticizing Kamala Harris, saying, hey, I'm not comfortable. I am not okay with Kamala Harris's refusal to, materially do anything about Gaza. Her refusal to do something like an arms embargo, to condition aid to Israel. And, Joe Biden is, where the fuck even is Joe Biden? Probably dead. But, by saying that, by criticizing the administration in power and the Democratic candidate who is running to replace Joe Biden, has gotten you accused of being a Trump supporter, right? Where it's so you have a problem with what the Democrats are doing. So that means that you want Donald Trump. Why is it black and white like that? Why is it one or the other? If you do not unequivocally support Kamala Harris, that means then that you want Donald Trump.
Trying to do it as tastefully as I could.
No one wants to think anymore, I fear.
I had to find something that's tasteful and to the point and meaningful and not make it about me and how I feel. Chappell ultimately decided against this plan because of a talk with her publicist, in which her publicist allegedly told her, "You fuck with the president and the government, your security is not the same and neither is your family's." The end of this article even addresses the fact that this was controversial at the time that she did it because people misinterpreted it as an endorsement of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, which is kind of what's happening now. So, a snippet of this most recent Guardian interview gets posted on
Still alive,
Pop
Jack.
And the quote that they picked ends with, "There's problems on both sides," and there's a picture of Kamala Harris next to Chappell. It is quite literally crafted to be rage bait. Okay, so like I alluded to earlier, the most wild misinterpretation that I've been seeing of this quote is that Chappell Roan is a Republican, which, From what I understand, the way that people are coming to this conclusion is the "there's bad people on both sides" quote, which again is a bad quote because it's not clear, it's kind of a false equivalence. It leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation or explicit bad faith interpretation, especially if you're just scrolling through your timeline and you see this quote divorced from its original intent. Because when she's saying there's bad people on both sides, she means that in the context of a more left-leaning perspective, because both sides, both parties of the US government are endorsing the actions of Israel.
Yeah, and not just how, both parties are so staunchly pro-Israel and they're arguing over who's more pro-Israel. It's the fact that the Biden-Harris administration has moved right so far to the right on a number of issues. And so Chappell Roan is obviously a leftist, and she's looking at both of these parties and seeing that they are too far to the right of her beliefs for her to endorse one over the other publicly. Like, that's the point that she's making. She's not saying who she's voting for. She's saying, I am not going to endorse who, the likely candidate for her to endorse would be, which is Kamala Harris, because, or at least that's what the assumption would be, because Kamala Harris is to the right on where Chappell Roan stands as an individual.
But they're also coupling that lack of specificity with another out-of-context quote in which she says that she loves her Republican family members. Ergo, Chappell Roan, the drag queen who is now a daughter of Sasha Colby, one of the most famous drag queens in the world, who has been expressly outspoken for the advancement of LGBTQ rights here in the US, is somehow a Republican. Now, like I said, that is the dumbest interpretation of this that I've seen so far. The more common take that I'm seeing is that in a high-stakes election like this one, this kind of take from somebody with a lot of prominent influence is cowardly. Because sure, both parties are essentially the same when it comes to foreign policy, although it is worth noting here that if Donald Trump were elected, he would probably be like materially worse for the will and interests of the Palestinian people. We still got a lot going on domestically. Abortion is at stake. LGBT.
I mean, yeah, but also genocide is a genocide. It's hard to it's hard to be like, okay, well, here's genocide, but then here's even worse genocide. Like, it doesn't change the fact that the genocide is still happening, and it doesn't change the fact that Israel has now expanded its assault on the region to include Lebanon and is ethnically cleansing the West Bank. And this is all happening under the Biden-Harris administration.
LGBTQ rights, things that are definitely of interest to folks in Chappell's fan base, that the Democratic Party, objectively, by default, has better opinions on. And so the lack of an endorsement in some people's eyes is equal to cowardice because all of these other things are at stake. However, I think this goes back to the fact that this quote is part of a larger conversation between Chappell Roan and an interviewer. It's not an official statement. She's not coming out and saying, don't vote. In this same passage, she's encouraging people to vote in their local and city elections. It's not like she's entirely politically uninformed. She just does not support both parties of the federal government based on their current foreign policy positions. I think she would perhaps benefit from, again, being a little bit more specific, maybe saying, I will not vote for the Democratic candidate unless
but like, here's the thing too. This is kind of a narrow way to look at it. We're obviously the big the big thing right now is how the Democrats are not going to change on their policies over in the Middle East, regardless of what Israel does. But I think if I'm Chappell Roan, or I'm sure Chappell Roan and I are similar in our beliefs. You look at the Democratic Party as more than just what they are doing to support Israel. You look at the Democratic Party as having failed working class people over and over again, of which the LGBTQ, a lot of people in the LGBTQ community are working class people in this country. You look at the fact that they're not talking about healthcare. The Democrats are not fucking talking about healthcare, okay? They're not talking about climate change. They're not talking about these, huge issues that working class people are faced with every single day. And so it's not just about it's not just about the US's relationship with Israel and how they are continuing to fund and facilitate Israel's actions in Gaza and in the West Bank and now in Lebanon. But they are, someone like Chappell is looking at the totality of the Democratic Party, is seeing how the Democratic Party is not championing the trans community, because the trans community, like all working class people in this country, are affected by issues that the Democrats have completely abandoned. So, healthcare, whether it is specifically something like gender affirming care or just healthcare in general, has been abandoned by the Democrats. They're not talking about healthcare. It's just we're just going to keep going with the Affordable Care Act. No, it's not talking about healthcare as healthcare being a human right, as healthcare being something that they will work to guarantee for all people in the United States. They can't name one time they mentioned trans rights at the DNC. Yeah, and let's also not forget that at the DNC, for the first time since like 2012, there was no trans speaker. They don't care, and they also look at trans rights as something that they don't really want to get involved with. They gotta stay away from that, and so that's what they're choosing to do. Like, they only, trans rights were mentioned twice during the entirety of the DNC. Trans people were mentioned just 2 speeches. Neither speaker received primetime speaking slots. For the first time since 2012, the DNC did not feature any trans speakers. This year, for the first time in its 40-year history, the Human Rights Campaign declared a national state of emergency for LGBTQ plus Americans. And, you look at something like the Equality Act. Biden has failed in 4 years to pass the Equality Act because he refuses to end the filibuster, because he refuses to move forward with even attempting any meaningful change here. And so everything is just word service. And so trans people who are like, oh, this is not trans people, LGBTQ people who are calling out Chappell Roan and saying, you bring great shame to the LGBTQ community. How dare you turn your back on, how dare you use the aesthetics of drag culture? How dare you lean into being a lesbian artist and not be out here stumping for Kamala Harris. And it's because Chappell is, Chappell is looking at our political situation and the upcoming election as more than just, well, Donald Trump is bad. I've heard nothing in terms of healthcare protection for marginalized communities from Democrats. They abandoned the working poor now, and they're abandoning another marginalized group. Right. And so I think like it's clear that, it's clear that people who are calling out Chappell and saying, well, don't you understand how bad Donald Trump will be for for the LGBTQ community? And it's this lesser of two evils argument just over and over again, where they only look at politics as this person, this person in the words that they use is worse than this person, and so therefore you must vote for the person who's using nicer words. Even when, if you look at the material changes, if you look at the actual legislation that the Democratic Party has passed, it's hard to see how they actually are materially the party that champions the LGBTQ community. And a reminder that LGBTQ people are like all other working class people, where they are affected by they are affected by all of these issues. They are not just specifically affected by something like anti-trans legislation or bills that are specifically targeting LGBTQ people. It's especially gross because drag is about disregarding norms. It's not meant to be an easy to swallow pill. It's supposed to fly in the face of what so many cishet people think is normal. LGBTQ people trying to discredit her don't know shit about the history of drag. And I also think like I think that this whole conversation is what's very clear is that there are a lot of people who are swayed by aesthetics, and it's funny that they're accusing Chappell of using drag aesthetics and not being an actual champion for the LGBTQ community. But they are swayed by the niceties and the aesthetics of Democrats and of the Democratic Party, and they are not interested in actually examining the actions of the Democratic Party, and how when somebody like Chappell comes along and is simply like, yeah, I'm not going to endorse a candidate because they are both too far to, they both don't align with what I believe in. They both don't align with what I am actually out here championing. And so, here's my advice. If you're a fan of mine, if you're listening to this interview, get involved in local politics. Do your, use critical thinking before you cast a vote. Take all these things into consideration. And that's all that she said. Dems say the words would never take the action needed to enforce these words. Prime example, Roe versus Wade never being codified into law. Right. And the fact that like Joe Biden just completely dropped any consideration of working to end the filibuster. And so you can listen to the Democrats talk about the things that they're going to do, and that they're the party of the people, and they're the party for Black people and Latinos and LGBTQ and young and old and whatevs. But you have to also examine the actions that they take. And on Israel and Palestine, this has been the whole debate where people who want to support Kamala Harris no matter what are like, yeah, but listen to what Kamala has said on Palestine. Listen to her words. Listen to the niceties. Donald Trump is out here saying that they're gonna, he's gonna do even more genocide, that he's just, he's so bloodthirsty, and he's so, well, one, I think if you do listen to the words that Kamala Harris is saying, it makes it clear what she believes. And look no further than most lethal military in the world. Look no further than saying Israel has the right to defend itself. But more, looking beyond words and understanding that it's about the action that is taken, because words don't mean shit.
Commit to doing XYZ, but with regard to the statement that she did actually put out, I see somebody who is very afraid of saying the wrong thing. We've already established that in some ways Chappell is battling with the pressure of fame. She is presumably very aware of her large left-leaning fan base, and of course she has expressed her own empathy for the suffering of the Palestinian people. So if she endorses Kamala Harris, she's going to get called a genocide supporter, and if she doesn't endorse Kamala Harris, she's going to get called a Republican. And of course, there should be more nuance to that conversation. However, this is the internet, where everything is black and white all the time, especially when every entertainment interviewer is naturally going to ask for celebrities' opinions on the US election because they're looking to get a soundbite on where the celebrity stands. And I don't necessarily mean that in a malicious or uncharitable way. They're doing their jobs by asking those questions, and art and entertainment and politics have all kind of become the same thing. It's all part of the same culture war. But then what happens is these celebrities are pressured to give answers that they don't really want to give because they're not trying to alienate anybody in their fan base specifically. And that's how we get statements of empty nothingness like both sides are bad that get cherry-picked and posted on Twitter by PopFlop, repeat cycle until the inevitable heat death of the universe. So, do I think that Chappell Roan's lack of an endorsement of Kamala Harris is a big deal? No, not necessarily. I think the majority of folks in her fan base are either voting for Kamala or they're not voting at all. And I'm sure there are a lot of folks in her fan base who are, begrudgingly voting for the Democrats with a harm reduction mindset. And I'm not telling you how to feel either way, but I think there are a couple reasons why this specific quote from Chappell Roan is rubbing so many people the wrong way. I think when she made this stance about not performing at the White House for Pride, it was a little bit of a different impact because Biden was still presumably going to be the nominee this time around, and she was specifically criticizing his administration. And I think there was a lot of doomerism surrounding Joe Biden around this time, one, because of his administration's actions while handling Israel, and two, because they saw his decision to stay in the race as selfish and a lost cause, and they thought it was highly unlikely that he would win again. Obviously, we know Joe Biden dropped out of the race. Now Kamala Harris is running to be president, leading to a rejuvenated spirit within the Democratic Party, but also this pressure from some people to be like, okay, it's not Joe Biden, you got what you wanted, it's not Joe Biden, we can't criticize Kamala because it is imperative for her to win this election against Donald Trump. So not only are the vibes different, we're closer to the election than we were then, so the stakes are kind of different, but also we did just see a pretty big celebrity endorsement make a material impact in this race. A few weeks ago, following the presidential debate between...
Yeah, this is what people wanted Chappell to do. This is what they, I don't know why they would expect this of her. Like, if you know anything about Chappell, you would not expect that she would have nominated or publicly endorsed Kamala Harris. That's what's so funny about it. If you've paid 2 seconds attention to Chappell Roan, you would never have expected that she would come out to publicly endorse Kamala Harris.
Between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, Taylor Swift posted on Instagram that she was endorsing Harris as well as her vice president candidate, Tim Walz. Following Taylor Swift's endorsement, Vote.gov reported an influx of 400,000 people who had specifically followed Taylor Swift's link, meaning that there is definitive proof that Taylor Swift, for some reason, converted people who weren't previously going to vote into active voters. Now, I think this is a little different than the case with Chappell Roan because obviously Taylor Swift is the biggest pop star in the whole world. There was kind of a little bit of a mystery as to who she was actually going to endorse for president because prior to her endorsement there was a whole controversy where she was seen hugging Brittany Mahomes.
It's also something where people who were applauding and so happy that Taylor publicly endorsed Kamala, it's just about the optics of that. They don't care then that she's besties with someone like Brittany Mahomes. They don't care that Taylor Swift has said nothing in regards to Palestine in the way that Chappell Roan has, and how Chappell Roan is actively fundraising for Palestine and how she is being morally consistent. They don't care about that. They just care that how about we accept that there are clearly flaws in the Democratic Party, but encourage people to vote against a fucking fascist cult leader? We need all the votes against that man possible. Vote Kamala. If you don't vote, it's a vote for Trump.
Who is a known and vocal Trump supporter, and so people were like, oh, is she only like conveniently liberal when it benefits her, which is not what you want to hear if you're Taylor Swift's marketing team. But whether Taylor Swift's endorsement...
What I would just say is obviously Trump is a fucking fascist, but I think it's important to take a look at the policies that the Biden-Harris administration has pushed over the last 4 years and that Kamala Harris has showcased she is intending to continue, and recognize that that is also fascism. So I look, I've been very clear about the fact that I will never get on here and tell people how to vote or who to vote for. I'm not a political influencer in that sense. I don't work for any party anymore. I'm just giving my opinions on things. And I also live in California, so I recognize that it doesn't matter how I vote one way or another. But I do think it's important that we do not lose sight of the fact that, yeah, Trump is a fascist psychopath, but also the Democratic Party and the Biden-Harris administration is equally fascistic when it comes to things like policing and the border and foreign policy. And so this is not an instance of one person is fascist in their policies and one is not. You know, so when criticizing the Democratic Party, you have to call it for what it is. Central Committee is in the chat. How is he always? It's like a beacon. It's like Mike is like a beacon whenever someone's like you have to vote for the Democratic Party because they are not fascist.
It was genuine or just done entirely out of self and image preservation. You know for a fact that if she endorsed Kamala Harris, she wasn't going to like be criticizing her positions on Israel and Palestine in any way. because Taylor Swift doesn't do that. Whereas Chappell has made a specific kind of activism a part of her brand. And so therefore, if she did endorse Kamala Harris, she would essentially be seen as a traitor to those kinds of leftist ideals. Overall, I think this controversy is pretty dumb and says more about our propensity to gravitate toward meaningless rage bait than it does about Chappell Roan and her political views. I think because Chappell's existence in the public eye has always had sort of an inherently political edge to it, interviewers are going to...
I thought she said Mike is like a vegan. No, I was saying what I meant to say, not Mike is a beacon, but any liberal comment is a beacon. It's like a bat signal, and Mike will appear.
Continuously push her to take a definitive stance on the US election and other political issues. And I think she's aware of that, and I don't think she wants that. And I think there's an entire market of secondhand celebrity gossip bullshit that benefits from that awkward in between.
Okay. When some fans okay, so this is about her turning down the invitation to perform at White House Pride. When some fans misconstrued her lack of attendance due to her disagreement with a number of the Biden administration's positions as support for Republicans and GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump, because those people see everything as one or the other, Roan told Rolling Stone earlier this month, "It's not so black and white that you hate one and you like the other." Right, exactly. No matter how you say it, people are still going to be pissed for fucking some reason. I'm not going to the White House because I'm not going to be a monkey for pride. God, I love her. She added to Rolling Stone of her political views. Right now, it's more important than ever to use your vote. Look, oh my God, what? She's talking about voting. And I will do whatever it takes to protect people's civil rights, especially the LGBTQ plus community. I feel lucky to be alive during an incredibly historical time period when a woman of color is a presidential nominee. So how could this be that she's out here talking about voting and talking about local elections and talking about protecting people's civil rights, but just simply won't endorse the Democratic Party? What? But how could it be if she believes these things and she must endorse Kamala Harris? Otherwise, she doesn't believe these things because she loves Donald Trump. Roan is using her success to support causes that she believes in. She's been donating a portion of her concert ticket sales to the Kaleidoscope Trust. Yeah, it is disgusting. It is disgusting that there are so many people online who are like, she's done nothing for the LGBTQ community. She's just used the LGBTQ community. Shut the fuck up. She is out here doing some of the most of what, like, when you compare her to other pop artists who talk about the LGBTQ community, because one, she is queer. She's a lesbian. She's a lesbian pop artist, and she's not faking that. And two, because it's important to her to be outspoken on behalf of this community that is so vulnerable to attacks. According to The Guardian, the merch stands at her concert sells signed risograph prints for £100 each, with proceeds going towards aid for Palestine. Of the prints, Roan said, "It's just my duty to help send resources to a community that is absolutely being destroyed." Yeah, it's very nasty that so many people are accusing her of using the LGBTQ community when she is a member of the LGBTQ community. I'm tired of artists like Chappell Roan profiting off of queer and drag culture. She's queer. She is queer. You can't say that she's profiting off of queer culture when she is a queer artist. and then refusing to do the bare minimum when it comes to standing up. How is she refusing to do the bare minimum? Genuinely. Because she won't endorse Kamala fucking Harris? So now you're going to erase everything that she has done because she won't endorse your girlie? Because she's probably afraid of getting canceled by a small portion of the internet or is just uneducated. No, actually, she is educated. She is morally consistent. And that's why she has said the things that she has said. Okay, let's watch her TikTok.
Who they're voting for. I have encouraged people to use critical thinking skills, learn about what they're voting for.
Yeah, God forbid somebody does not endorse Kamala Harris and it's because they're uneducated. Mayhaps it's the other way around.
Learn about who they're voting for and ask questions, and it's being completely taken out of context, per usual.
Yeah, per usual.
To what I say in interviews.
And I swear to God, if Chappell Roan is run off the internet or is run out of the industry because she can't handle that now everyone obsessively pores over every word that she says. Like, if we lose Chappell's, being unafraid to say what she believes in, to not fit the mold of Hollywood celebrities and certainly not liberal Hollywood celebrities. If we lose that, I'm going to be very angry. I'm going to be very upset because I truly think she is a breath of fresh air, and I wish more celebrities were saying what she says and were being authentic in the way that I perceive her to be authentic.
And I think it's important that people use critical thinking. I think it's important for me to question authority and question world leaders and question myself, question my algorithm, question if some person that tweeted something about someone else is even true. It's important to question because that's how I think we move forward. This is my third election in voting. And the world is changing so rapidly, and I want to be part of the generation that changes things for good.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. She's like, wait, I'm questioning the people who are in charge. I'm not just accepting everything at face value. I'm just not accepting that the Democrats are the party for trans people, for the LGBTQ community, because I'm looking at endless anti-working class policies that also affect LGBTQ people because they are working class people in this country. I'm looking at, their policies that bring death and destruction to people overseas. And I'm questioning that and going, wait a second, I do not support this. And I don't support somebody who is facilitating this, who is responsible for this. And that's all she's saying. Real underlying issues, people basing their decision motives off a musician. No, parasocial culture in general. I think that's a part of it. I think it's this idea that it's this idea that Chappell Roan has to support Kamala or Kamala's going to lose the election. Like, Chappell Roan will be responsible for Donald Trump, which is bullshit, which is insane. I think there's obviously a parasocialness here where fans of Chappell Roan who support, unquestioningly support Kamala Harris also want her to do that because she's their fave, and they want to feel they want to feel justified in that unquestioning support for Kamala Harris. And so when Chappell doesn't do that, they're like, oh, this is, this can't be. This simply can't be. I can't support you as an artist unless you believe what I believe here. And then I think it's also this like notion that Chappell has to support Kamala because there are a lot of people who will base their decision off of what she is doing, which, no, that's not the case. I mean, that's not even the case for someone like Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is, what her impact is getting people to register to vote, but it's not going to be getting like scores of fans who wouldn't have voted for Kamala Harris to then vote for Kamala Harris. All the undecided Midwestern 50-year-olds are on the edge of their seats waiting for Chappell Roan's input. Yeah. The white college educated voters in the suburbs are like, but what is Chappell Roan doing? It doesn't matter. We're all in a simulation. What? I don't know. Taylor's poll is kind of crazy. I know my sister's friends are already thinking of voting solely due to her, but again, just anecdotal. Yeah, it is anecdotal because if you look at actual data, it does not support celebrity endorsements being a major driving factor for votes for that candidate. I mean, you look at like the fact that Taylor Swift supported Marsha Blackburn's opponent for Senate, and Marsha Blackburn still won. Beyonce supported Beto O'Rourke in Texas. Didn't matter. He still lost. The one instance of a celebrity endorsement that is always pointed to as like a rare example of actually driving a significant number of votes for that candidate is when Oprah endorsed Barack Obama. But yeah, most of the time, the impact of a major celebrity endorsement will be, an increase in voter registration, just awareness. Deaf didn't help Hillary. Yeah, Hillary had every goddamn liberal in Hollywood endorsing her, myself included.
Because we need it. If you come to my shows, if you read my full interviews, if you literally know anything about me and for what I stand for, you know that this is not lip service, this is not virtue signaling, that my actions have always paved the way for my project and the people who really know me.
Can I be honest? I think when it comes to Taylor Swift's impact, I think it's more likely to have an impact because of the way that Trump responded to Taylor Swift, not the fact that Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. That's my that's my looking into the crystal ball, seeing what impact Taylor Swift will have on the 2024 election. And I genuinely think that the way Donald Trump responded to Taylor is more impactful than her endorsing Kamala Harris.
Actions speak louder than words, and actions speak louder than an endorsement. Here's the full quote that a lot of people are just not reading. I have so many issues with our government in every way, she says. There are so many things that I would want to change, so I don't feel pressured to endorse someone. There's problems on both sides, and I encourage people to use your critical thinking skills. Use your vote. Vote small. Vote for what's going on in your city. The change she wants to see in the U.S. is this election
Mick
year.
Beggar, thank
she
you for
says
the 4
instantly
months.
is trans rights. They cannot have cis people making decisions for trans people, period. So, hear it from my mouth, if you're still wondering. No, I'm not voting for Trump. And yes.
Oh shit, Game Rex, thank you for the Prime. Scootish, thank you for the 7 months. Why are we simping for any politician? They don't know you, little bro. Wanting more from politicians should not be criticized, in my opinion. God forbid, though. God forbid you ask any questions. God forbid you do any critical examining. Dragon Army, thank you for the gifted. God, how do I miss all these? Plant 923, thank you for the 2 months.
I will always question those in power.
Wow, God forbid.
And those making decisions over
you love
other
Donald
people.
Trump.
And I will stand up for what's right and what I believe in. And like, it's always at the forefront of my project.
I also think that she's correct in saying like, hey, you want to know where you can do real change at a local level. Like when it comes to anti-trans legislation, pay attention what's happening in your state. Look at what's happening in your state legislatures. Make sure that when you're voting, that your voting is not just every 4 years for the, in the presidential election. Make sure you are voting when there are judges who are on the ballot. Make sure you are voting for your state, your state legislators. Be paying attention to what's happening in your community. And that is where you can, you have the best chance at driving change.
And I'm sorry that you fell for the clickbait.
I love her. You will never make me hate Chappell. I'm just gonna say this, okay? And in fact, everything that she says just makes me like her more. We have no choice.